Welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Basketball PH podcast. Enjoy the show.
What is up, mga paps? Welcome to the Fantasy Basketball PH, your Filipino brand of fantasy basketball, and this is your host, your fantasy Papi Roy. So it's been a while, guys. I do understand that I've been kind of like out for, I've been uh, out or injured for quite some time, so I haven't really released any content for the past 3 to 4 days because I had an emergency family wise, so I have to really prioritize that. But hey, we're back, and this specific episode is supposed to be the weekend episode with DMac. So we're gonna do an English episode for today. But don't you worry. For our usual contents, I'll be doing a very like I'll be giving you guys a lot of content starting tomorrow. So in response to me missing out for a couple of days, I'll be doing a very long episode, not very long, just a long episode tomorrow, going through all NBA teams. I'll be giving you ads, streams, possibly drops, ups and downs, and injury updates for every team tomorrow. So I'll be doing that. So watch out for that specific episode. I already, kind of like browsed everything that we can discuss about it. But yeah, I'll be polishing it until tomorrow. So pretty exciting. But it's a different episode for today. So let's now pull in our co-host, DMac. What's up, brother?
What's up, Roy? How are you? Welcome back. You were day to day, but good to have you back.
Yeah, day to day. Yeah, finally, I'm back, and I'm super excited. Imagine preparing a lot for to start the season, and then day one, I'm already day to day.
Yeah. We put you on the IL list, but now you're back. You're back with a vengeance.
Yeah, for sure. So everyone, me and DMAC is going to have a very exciting topic for today. So let's kind of like shelve some fantasy content at least for this episode. Let's mix it up with some reality content, talking about what we are expecting for NBA 2023 season. So this is kind of like that award show or prediction show that we usually see in mainstream media. But we are going to have our own version so with DMAC. So let's get things started, brother. So NBA predictions. First off, MVP. So here's our bets for MVP this coming 2022-2023 season. DMAC DMAC's choices is on the right side. Mine is on the left side. Let's start off with you, brother. You chose Luka Doncic.
I did. We've gone for two of the most favorite MVP candidates. But yeah, I've gone for Luca. I think even this season, he started off really well. He started off like a steam train, absolute magic on the court that we've seen so far. So he's definitely one of the favorites. He's my prediction for MVP. I think his usage is sky high. I think he's a superstar, and I think he fits a narrative as well. We probably won't see Jokic come MVP, just if you did follow the narrative, if you believe in that type of thing as well. But I think Doncic is just out and out a tremendous player. So I think he's got to be one of the favorites and my pick for MVP.
For sure, for sure. If you check the Vegas bets, is actually kind of like the front runner to win the MVP this season. Um, do you have any reservations for Luca? Or is it like for you it's a clear cut choice?
For me, it's clear cut. I don't see him resting, so I think that's one of the negatives. I think Giannis, he's had some knee issues over the years. He's generally quite healthy, but he will sit. Doncic, I don't think he will sit as much. He'll probably sit here and there. Uh, but apart from probably Christian Wood, I think he's probably the main man, and no one's really taken his usage away. His numbers are sky high. Even at the moment, they're 35 points per game, 9 rebounds, 7.7 assists, just unbelievable. He's even getting some steals and blocks, which is almost unheard of for him. But that's got to add to it as well. I know it's a small sample size. We're only 3 games in for himself, but I think it's a great sign of things to come.
So I'm quite curious. So aside from Luca, were there any kind of like a front runner that you've chosen with Luca for this award?
Oh, I'm with you with Giannis. I think he's a perennial top 5 contender. I think he's going to go have a great year with Milwaukee. They've got a fair bit to prove this season. And to start without Middleton, I think it's going to be a really hard and fast start for Giannis as well. So I think he's always going to be a favorite. I think they're the top 2. You can throw out some other names, but for me, they're clear top 2.
There you go. So I was kind of like hoping that you mentioned that so you can help my argument. So to be honest, I was also thinking Luca. I was thinking hard. But of course, just to mix things up, this is kind of like the first award of this episode. I was thinking if both me and DMac is going to choose Luca, it just won't be so much fun, right? So I went the other side of the NBA from the Eastern Conference. I'm gonna go with Giannis Antetokounmpo. So first off, let me just quickly explain what's my reservation about Luca. Um, Luka Doncic haven't really completed full season. So in terms of health wise, um, given that he's the main man of the Dallas Mavericks, I doubt that Dallas Mavericks could win without Luka. I, I mean, that's just me. That's how I see the Dallas Mavericks. So I'm just looking at a possible knock on the wood, possible like what if Luka misses time. So with the expectation that we have for Luka for the Dallas Mavericks being the MVP, which I definitely agree. If he misses time, I think it's going to be a big kind of like blemish on his contention for the MVP award. So compared to my pick, Giannis Antetokounmpo, aside from really starting, should be starting very strong, which is he's already doing without Chris Middleton. The Milwaukee Bucks already have a plan. Like it's been implemented for like what the past 2 to 3 years. They are actually kind of like the Los Angeles Clippers of the East, that like a mellowed down version because they kind of like have a plan to load manage their team. But I just saw the hunger for Giannis Antetokounmpo. So despite the load management, it's not a negative it's not going to give an negative impact to his contention for MVP. Actually, it's going to help him out because he's going to last longer than other MVPs. So that's kind of like my main argument for MVP. Just like uh, one of the one of the players that I really admire in terms of competition. Well, of course we have Kobe Bryant, right? Luka Doncic is one. I do understand Luka is someone who will really cry his heart out. Remember when they lost, the Slovenia lost in the Olympics, he was really upset. So out of like the playing court, I really expect a lot of from Luka. But that goes as well with Giannis Antetokounmpo. His previous Eurobasket experience. I think he was really aiming for for his country to be the topmost team. And I think with that said, and then with him losing several awards last year, he might really come back with the vengeance. So yeah,
Mm.
that's my contention with Giannis. And I'm also thinking that in terms of fantasy, he might it will be doing same version. DMac and I will be doing a same version, probably like half year, like All Star break episode for fantasy basketball awardees. But I was thinking Giannis is also might be my MVP as well. So yeah, so
And I don't
anything
disagree.
you
I
want
don't
to say?
disagree, Roy. Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm glad you brought up the Olympics because that was a great game. Personally, as an Australian Boomers fan, we finally got the bronze medal at the Olympics, and tough luck, Luca. But he coming out of Eurobasket, he looked as fit as ever. I think
Yeah,
a lot
yeah,
of media attention about how well he looked and how trim he looked. So he's coming into the season in red hot form already. But I think just to counter your argument as well, he's a contender even if Dallas end up as a sixth, seventh, eighth seed in the West. Whereas if he's able to elevate the team to a top four seed, I think that's almost getting him across the line to become that MVP. I think that's a big game changer for him. And I think if they can get into the top four seed, I think that's going to be in big part to Luca. So I think that also puts him probably ahead of Giannis for me.
for sure, for sure. And I love the rebuttal there. I'm also expecting Dallas to be, top four, to be honest. Um, but by the way, before we move forward to the next awardee, my kind of like another option of mine aside from Luka and Yanis, I was really thinking about Joel Embiid. Having that narrative as well to, finally win that MVP. Maybe this is the year that Jokic kind of like slows down and
Mm.
then Joel Embiid wins some. I'm also thinking of the narrative wherein in the past years the NBA has been getting a lot of non-American MVPs. So maybe they wanted, I mean, Embiid isn't like a pure American, but he's more American, like over like the Giannis's and the Lucas. Maybe it's going to be Ja Morant, but who knows if that's the narrative
Possibly,
that we're looking at,
possibly, and it could
right?
be Embiid, third time lucky, two-time runner-up. But yeah, maybe third
E-
time lucky.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, so before we move forward, let's just quickly check out our followers here. Papi Mark Javeliana, Papi Roy, good evening. Do you think Bruno Fernando is a stash? Probably deep league. Uh, Houston Rockets front court is kind of like a mess for me. Um, I'm gonna talk about it tomorrow more, but I'm still kind of like really confident with Alfred Shingun, despite playing off the bench. How about you, bro?
I think deep league as well. We saw Houston play small ball yesterday with Jabari Smith as the small ball
Yeah.
center, and he looked tremendous. And we'll talk about him later. He's one of my guys. So I think
Oh,
he's one of my guys. I'm giving you a
you.
sneak peek. But Bruno Fernando, maybe in a 14 or a 16 teamer and deeper, but for standard leagues, probably not a stash.
Yeah, probably just a stream. Well, if the purpose if just is just to stash, maybe you have like a lot of IL slots, and then all of the injured or out players or day-to-day players are already owned. Then maybe yes, maybe the answer is yes, just for you to really stash someone, just for the sake of really stashing. Same situation, bro. Carl Diego. Papi J Jeso. Glad to see you smile after this week's victory. Oh, drawing some fire, drawing some fire.
I like it. Bring it on. I like it.
Yeah, so we'll have a more detailed. We'll give a specific segment starting this weekend for our Mount Rushmore league. So we'll have like we'll discuss the happenings there. We'll shout out Papi Jojo Legaspi and thanks for tagging Papi AJ Ong. When you thought that you grab a gem, then suddenly went injured. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Basically, that's me. So we'll have I'll definitely drop a lot of content starting tomorrow. It's just like busy and unfortunate several days for me, but yeah, I'm back. Carl Diego agrees with me here. Yanis bet for MVP. Papi Joy Villar, what's up? Harden's also the mix of MVP, surprisingly ahead of Embiid. Yeah, I mean, start of the season, yeah, Harden is really showing us his sacrifice in terms of monetary and his kind of like physique is really paying off. Papi Mark Javeliana, Alex Caruso is still a goat. So I have him and he's my mascot player, the bald mamba. And then Papi AJ saying, let's go. Okay. Next awardee, bro. Rookie of the year. I'm super hyped with my pick. It's a bold one. Uh, so let me start for this one, Papi DMac. I'm gonna go with my boy Benedict Matherin. So I think it seems like Paulo Banquero is like a clear winner, and I have to agree. Uh, there's he already kind of like created a record, right? Like in his first 3 to 4 games, already matching several great names for a rookie. But Benedict Mathurin on the other end, I just think he's already kind of like in the top two, top three in the rookie of the year run. Even with Miles Turner isn't playing, but even with those kind of like trade chips of Indiana still there. So if the moment that Buddy Hield, Miles Turner, or whoever is will be included in the package, uh, the moment that trade will be dealt, I just believe that Benedict Mathurin is kind of like a more Anthony Edwards than Anthony Edwards this year. I'm putting all my chips on Ben Maturin. Um, it's more of like the mindset here in what I call this here in the Philippines. We have kind of like a slang saying that mindset because there's a like joke ongoing there. So in terms of mindset, this kid just dissed LeBron James off the bat before the start of the season. That's how bold he is. So I'm riding. I'm kind of like riding that energy, that vibe. I'm all in with Benedict Martin. If I Paulo Banquera is the strongest contender. So my point here is if there's someone that can actually match him, I thought it's Jabari Smith, but the role and the team composition kind of like might limit him. So I'm gonna go with Benedict Mathurin here. It's hard to fight with Paulo Banquero, but that's what I have. So, bro, Paulo Banquero.
Yeah, I've gone out on a limb with Paolo. I think I think he's a clear choice. I think he's already shown his wares. He's going to be the number one guy. He's the alpha on the Magic already. I think he's going to continue it. He's not my number one fantasy rookie. Jabari is my number one fantasy rookie, but in terms of real life, it is Paolo Banquero. I think his numbers will just stack up nicely. I think he'll continue on, and it is a good look as well for the number one pick to also be the rookie of the year from the NBA perspective. And again, no conspiracy theories, but it is a good look as well. But I think he'll be strong all through the season. But like I said, not for me as a fantasy number one rookie, but for real life, I think he's very, very strong contender.
There you go. I think this one is kind of like almost clear cut. Like if we'll be technical and we'll be honest by ourselves without me being hyped with Maturin, I would have really voted for Paulo Banquero. But what's the beauty in agreeing together always with DMac? So I'm gonna go with my boy. This is going to be my boy. I've actually drafted him for several leagues. I actually picked him in my dynasty league as well. So, but I also have Jabari there, so it's kind of like biased. But yeah, I have to go with. But again, the statement that really sticks to me is he's like the Anthony Edwards. Uh, he's a better Anthony Edwards than Anthony Edwards so far because what he's doing was Anthony Edwards before, right? But yeah, we're gonna talk about Anthony Edwards possibly tomorrow in my long content about if he's a buy low or sell high. But yeah,
Yeah,
six man of the year.
just
Yeah,
going
go
back with
ahead.
the rookie, I think very good comparison. Even when you look at their usage rate as well, Banquero is around 30%, which is tremendously high, particularly in his position. But Benedict Mathurin, 28, coming off the bench. I know, but he's the man. I know he has been playing behind Buddy Hield, but I know not the last game today, but the previous game to that, I think Hield only played 16 minutes. Benedict is they are clearing the path for Benedict, so I think full steam ahead for him. So it's a great pick as well. Bit of a smoky, but I like it.
Yeah. We have to be bold sometimes. Speaking
Mm.
of Paolo Banquero, the only thing that possibly beyond the clear cut choice for Paolo. The only thing that I am kind of like really thinking, or trying to put a big microscope, is the moment that um Markel Fultz plays. Because as of right now, Paolo Banquero is actually the kind of like uh, getting the ball, and then he's trying to be that like point forward-ish role, right? So the moment that Markel Fultz, who is I believe the best playmaker in the Orlando Magic, plays, I'm super interested on how would he impact Banquero's game. I don't think he's gonna impact Paolo Banquero's game like big or significant, but yeah, I'm just like kind of like curious because as of the moment he trumped Franz Wagner. So I was kind of like high with Franz Wagner this season. But I already contemplated on that for like several times that, hey, maybe Paolo Banquero's playmaking will definitely impact him. I kind of like am aware, but I kind of like roll the dice that maybe not, maybe they part ways. But Paolo Banquero already overtook that with even Cole Anthony playing, and even Jalen Suggs before. So yeah, I mean, just to really give some thoughts on the usage that DMac mentioned.
I think
Next
Michael
up,
Fultz may actually help him. I think even from a fantasy perspective, I think Paolo Banchero, his field goal percentage is 42.6%. I think that can improve as he's closer to the rim. He's less of a playmaker, and he's getting some freebies from Fultz. I think that actually may help him from a fantasy perspective, but we'll see how it works in reality.
for sure, because Fultz and Wagner's two-man game last season was poetry in motion. So imagine Fultz and Banquero doing that. So
Mm.
yeah, yeah, I'm just super curious on, because that's going to be their ideal lineup with Fultz healthy, probably Jonathan Isaac finishing his book. So let's like wait for those to happen.
Yes.
Next up, bro, six man of the year. Brogdon is one of my guys, but I kind of like shifted my decision. But I'm gonna let D-Mac start off with this award.
Look, Roy, when I submitted this was about a week ago. I'm less keen on him now, but I'll still stick with my guy, Malcolm Brogdon, coming off the bench. He's played well, but he's not getting the minutes. He's only playing about 23 minutes a game on average. Derek White, they're sort of mixing and matching, whether it's Derek White, Malcolm Brogdon, in terms of minutes and usage and whatnot. So it's going to be tough, and we know his injury history as well over the years. So if he can stay on the court and get some more minutes, I think he's got a great shot. But in hindsight, looking back now, I really like Christian Wood as well, and he'll speak of him shortly. But I'll stick with my guy, Malcolm Brogdon. I think he's going to play an important role for the Celtics moving forward. I know that Jason Tatum's been on fire, so maybe there's been less of a role for Brogdon, while both himself and Jalen Brown has been on fire the first 4 games. So perhaps Malcolm Brogdon can bring it back from the fire. So we'll see what his role is moving forward, but it'll be interesting.
For sure, for sure. So you just mentioned that you were kind of like uh there's a certain amount of doubt for Brogdon, right? So if it isn't Brogdon, who would you have chose for six man of the year?
I like Christian Wood, but even Jordan Poole's getting a bit of steam as well. Um, I think he's a great skilled player. He's the heir apparent to Steph and to Clay. He's the next generation superstar, and his extension speaks volumes of how much he's regarded at the Golden State Warriors. So I think he's probably in the top 3 with these guys, probably ahead of Brogdon, to be honest. But let's wait and see. But I do like Christian Wood, so it's a good pick, Roy. You've done well.
Thanks, thanks. Speaking of Poole, you can't go wrong with someone who can really catch some punches. So having someone who has a good jaw really pays off. But yeah, I also like Brogdon. I think if I would have chose Brogdon, for me, the main motivation there is not just the stats, but more of like how he impacts the team. The Boston Celtics have been trying to get a playmaker for quite some time. And I think that's going to be the biggest impact that Malcolm Brogdon can bring to the table. But something that I'll be discussing tomorrow in my one of my episodes would be the positional battle with him and Derek White. Because if Malcolm Brogdon wasn't signed, I'm all in with Derek White as their six man as well. So the thing there is the positional battle. But yeah, DMac already dropped some very excellent points about Malcolm Brogdon. On my end, I'm gonna go with Christian Wood here. Um, this is kind of like in accordance with my personal narrative for the Dallas Mavericks. Dallas Mavericks is basically Luka Doncic and Christian Wood. You might put in Spencer Dinwiddie there, but for me, it's just Christian Wood and Luka Doncic. So the fact that they kind of like placed or put Christian Wood off the bench um, just means that maybe they don't trust other players aside from Luka Doncic. When Luka Doncic sits, right? Before they kind of like trusted Tim Hardaway Jr., but maybe he isn't like 100% yet. That's the reason why Christian Wood is coming off the bench. But I think that's a smart move, putting Christian Wood there. I mentioned this like in a few episodes back when we're trying to prepare for the drafts. The reason why I wanted Christian Wood is he is, as of all the big men, specifically for fantasy wise, of all the big men after first round or early rounds, Christian Wood is the lone big man that can really score. So you can find several good big men that can defend, that can give you field goal percentage, but you can't really find someone like Christian Wood that can really score. So in reality, it's also the same. Christian Wood is, you can see his performances in the past games, averaging almost 23 points per game. But you can see also that the rebound isn't there, the defense isn't there yet. But I mean, part of the consideration of awards actually are, you know, given that mainstream media are the ones that are judging these awards, I can see that they might really favor those type of players that are scorers over those type of players that really impact their teams or the game itself, doing several things. Like for example, Malcolm Brogdon being the playmaker over a scoring Christian Wood. So I'm seeing that that goes as well. That's also the reason why Jordan Poole is a front runner in this category as well. Because Jordan Poole will definitely, fire away and be that excited option for the Golden State whenever Curry or Klay Thompson sits, or even if they play, he's going to be their fire starter of the bench. So yeah, I agree. Jordan Poole will definitely be the third option in this category. But yeah, I'm happy to choose Christian Wood.
And
I
just
used
one
to
thing
call
on
him.
Christian Wood.
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, One thing that may hinder his chances is if Dallas decides to actually start him. I know
Start.
you
Yeah.
said that, yeah, maybe JaVale McGee with the weird contract clause where he must start, maybe they'll rescind that as well because it's not the greatest starting five in history. So I wonder if it's just a matter of time before Christian Wood actually starts, and then I guess bye to Six Man of the Year award, Roy.
That's true. That's true. Then I'm gonna vote Spencer Dinwiddie. No, I won't vote Spencer Dinwiddie. Okay. But by the way, I used to call Christian Wood Mokojin. That's like my nickname for him in fantasy. Do you play Tekken? Video game? DMac?
I haven't since I was a kid. You still play
Oh
it?
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
so so Mokojin is like the one who replicates the other kind of like players there. So he's a wood. So that's why I call Christian Wood
Right.
Mokojin there. But it have it. I think people didn't like that idea, so I stopped calling him Mokojin. Anyway, the defensive player of the year. So I'm gonna go with the usual, a very household name, Rudy Gobert. I just think that him being paid, him being one of the new foundations of Minnesota Timberwolves, who is very well known by their offensive arsenal. Well, if you look at their coach, Finch is an offensive architect. So that gives me, or that gives Rudy Gobert all of the kind of like the role, or all of the way to really carry the defense of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Mini, on the other hand, is starting very kind of like shaky. I'm already seeing beat riders saying that they might implode or whatnot, but I'll be patient with them. I mean, they kind of like shifted their strategy almost 360 degrees by actually hiring or acquiring Rudy Gobert. So I'm gonna be patient with the Wolves. I'm still excited for them, but this is kind of like a boring choice for me. I think if I'm gonna choose a defensive player, I could have chosen Giannis just for the sake of like, hey, if Giannis wants vengeance, he wants both awards again because he already did that. But I'm gonna go with Rudy Gobert here. But again, a boring choice for me. But you, on the
It's a
other
safe
hand,
pick.
Bam Adebayo.
Yeah. Yeah, it hasn't been a great start to the season for Bam. It's four games in, so it's very early. But Gobert is a safe pick, but a three-time winner. Again, the narrative. Maybe let's move on. Bam. He brings steals. He didn't bring many blocks last season, but we're hoping that that can increase this season. But like I said, very slow start, but I see him picking it back up. But steals, blocks, but also just his defensive rating. It's not just about steals and blocks and pure numbers, but also his defensive rating while he's on the court and making Miami a better team. I think that's important. So I'll still stick behind Bam. I think he's really important to what Miami want to achieve. Him and Butler are a really good defensive duo. I think they work well together in tandem, plus the offensive firepower that they have as well. Um, so I'll stick with Bam. I do like him, and I actually have him in one of my leagues, one of my main leagues. So I do hope that his offensive and defensive output and production actually improves significantly because he's been a bit of a fantasy disappointment. But again, 1 week in, a long way to go.
For sure, for sure. I can actually consider him a buy low. If a very frustrated GM owns Bam, he can actually test their fate. Um, Aside from Bam, who because if you check a lot of GC's conversation and posts, Herb Jones is one of the players that people are expecting a lot. So do you think Herb Jones has a shot for defensive player of the year?
I don't think so. Not from what we've seen so far. I think even now he's injured. We've seen what Trey Murphy can do, not just offensively, wonderful 3-point shooter. And today had an amazing game. He shot 8 from 8, 4 3-pointers. But his defensive game, not just the steals, the amount of pressure he puts on, he's long, he defends well. I think that'll take away from what Trey Murphy can do on that Pelicans team. Um, so I probably wouldn't have Herb in the top 5 for me. Again, last year's winner, Smart. I don't think he's going to be up there again. I do like your pick of Giannis. He's won it before, but you look at his defensive rating, and he's not just an offensive juggernaut, but the amount of pressure he puts on the defensive end is just tremendous. I think he's just a great two-way player.
Another player that I was actually thinking when I'm preparing for this specific choice was Joel Embiid. So I mean, if narrative wise, if he wants blood, if he wants to win not only award but also at least the Eastern Conference with Andre Drummond out, and for some reason Doc Rivers not trusting basketball Paul, I think he might have a shot. But again, he's also one of the players that started a little bit shaky for this year. So there's a long season. Let's watch out for this one. So before we move forward, let's quickly check out our followers here. Mark Joveliana, Embiid might redeem himself. Unfortunately, in his past few games, his conditioning is not so good. Yeah, this that's actually the point that I was mentioning. So hopefully, Embiid owners, also own some stocks of Embiid. He gets going. So let's watch out for Embiid's better games, and hopefully not the injuries. Papi aging on. Let's go, Jamorant. Yes, Jamorant, one of he. If we're talking about Bama Adebayo and Joel Embiid starting slow, Jamorant on the other hand is started this season very, very hot. Isaiah James, any thoughts on Kawhi? Kawhi, what can I say? Aside from being relegated to, he might win the six man. Maybe that's a bold statement that I can that I can mention for Kawhi. What do you think about that statement, Dimac? Imagine
It's
Kawhi
interesting,
winning six
yeah.
man of the
That
year.
would be really interesting. I think he does ramp up. So yeah, he started as the sixth man the other day. He'll ramp up. His minutes are really low, and I think he's already missed 2 games out of 4. Quality player. Hopefully, you didn't pick him too high. We were big on him, but it looks like they are going to be extremely cautious with him early in the season. Hopefully, he does ramp up, and that just means less missed games and also more minutes per game as well, because we know how good he can be. He can be an easy top 5 per game player. So keep the faith. I think he'll come through. So try not to panic and don't sell low.
Yeah, and if there's something that I was afraid of of picking Kawhi, because I don't the lone Kawhi that I have is in my dynasty, and I already traded him for a package Kawhi Leonard to get a package of DeJounte Murray. So I did that in my dynasty. So one thing that really kept me away from Kawhi is not his injury history, because there was a season wherein he came from injury, but he almost played like what 70 plus. I think he played 60 plus on that season, right? So it kind of like still trust the Los Angeles Clippers medical team on that. The lone thing that I kind of like kept me away was Clippers being too deep, that they might really, the load management is kind of like more prone over the injury risk. So yeah, so that's my kind of like reservation for Kawhi. Papi AJ Ong, trust Alfaren. Yeah, I do trust Sengun, one of my dudes. Andy Sarmiento, Sexton, be a top 57 player this season. Possibly the moment when Conley gets traded, because seems like Sexton is playing the point guard. So if that's the case, and then if Conley is still playing their main point guard, then it's going to be tough for Sexton to get value given his skill set and the way what he offers fantasy wise. Because he isn't. We've already seen this back in the Cleveland Cavaliers when Darius Garland was drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers. It was pretty obvious that Garland is like the better point guard over Sexton. Sexton is like the scorer type of guard, and in 9 categories, it's going to be hard for him to get that top 50 with lesser minutes and his skill set. I mean, what he offers, the scoring, maybe efficiency. So let's wait. It's still possible, but the domino effect would be triggered by Conley being traded. What's your thought about that, Dima?
I completely agree. I think at his peak at the Cavs, he was probably a top 80 player, but it was all points and the peripheral stats just weren't there. Unless he does change his stat set and a few guys move, I think he will be outside of the top 100 for me.
Agree. So, but the thing is, Project Wemby. If we trust Project Wemby, there's a big chance, Utah Jazz come in, trading all of those vets. Bobby
But they've
Press
started so
Leonardo,
well this season.
yeah, exactly. With that goes as well with my team, San Antonio Spurs. What's up with that? So it seems like DeJounte Murray is holding us for quite some time.
Yeah, he was holding you back. Yeah.
Bobby Pres Leonardo, Markkanen and Vassell for MVP has better standings than Lakers and Philly. Yeah, that's a funny thought. But yeah, Vassell and Markkanen really started the season very strong. Plus Aspirin Sengun. Lots of players actually got a headache. So people thought that I was down on Sengun because I posted that like good afternoon or good morning to everyone, aside from the owners of Alfred and Sengun. So it's just like the news of being relegated to the six man. But in terms of value, the jump is like pretty much 100% because last year he what how many minutes did he play? Kind of like less than 20 minutes, right? So just the fact of playing 25 minutes or so is already a big jump for Alfred Sengun. But I think playing off the bench kind of like should help him just because he'll be getting more usage there, maybe lesser time with APJ and Kabayan Jalen Green. So those we all know that those two guards are really crafty with the ball. So with Alfred Sengun playing off the bench, me personally, my take was it should kind of like help him despite not playing in starter, but he'll definitely play starter minutes. So those are my thoughts with Alfred Sengun. How about you, bro?
I think it's a matter of time that he comes back into the starting unit. I can't see him being overtaken by Bruno Fernando or Usman Garuba, unless they want to continue with small ball sensor. And I can't see them doing that for every single game, particularly against the stacked big boys in the front court of other teams. So I think Şengün will come back into the starting lineup, and he'll play solid minutes. But he was overdrafted for my liking,
Yeah,
for my taste.
for
But I
sure.
think he'll be an easy top 100 player, but not around that 50 mark that I saw him being drafted. And I'll be guilty. I am guilty. I did draft him in that sort of range in one of my leagues. I think I got overexcited with the hype.
The only two Sengun that I got this year, one is from an auction league. So, it's super budget meal because I got him, I remember, around $10 or $11. And then the other one is for Dynasty League. So
Mm.
the reason why even though I want to, own Alfred Sengun, people are getting him on that area aggressively. So that's the reason why I wasn't able to get some. So yeah, I do agree. People really kind of like rich for Alfred Sengun, but at the end of the season, I think he's definitely worth it. Not specifically for that ranking, but it'll definitely be a very very solid middle round big man. Couple more here. Jake Narciso, is Dylan Brooks worth sitting in IL until he pops out? Worth more for points leagues for me. In nine cats and category leagues, maybe not in standard, maybe beyond 12 team. That's I mean, I usually call Dylan Brooks Dylan Brick, so that's just a testament on how I see Dylan Brooks. But I also think that he'll have a bigger role this year for the Memphis Grizzlies. If you watch him, I actually watched him closely last year. He's actually good in defending. It just so happened that it doesn't translate into fantasy stats. Almost similar to how Ludort plays. He's really chasing the ball. He's actually, I mean, Memphis. This is one of the cases wherein this is something that I always mentioned before, that there are players that we think isn't good, but the organization that they belong loves them or trusts them so much. I think Dylan Brooks is one of them. I think Memphis
Mm.
Grizzlies loves Dylan Brooks, but maybe this is the final year that they'll gotta do that. There's a good chance he'll get traded just because of you know the direction that they have. But yeah, for me, just sure, but maybe beyond 12 team standard. How about you, bro?
I agree. Unless you're punting field goals, I think he's a streamer at best in standard leagues. And again, I agree with you in regards to how Memphis see him. I think they overrate him. His defense is good. It is really intense. Doesn't translate to those steel numbers. So maybe that's why they really love him. But they had DeAnthony Melton and they let him go. And I think he was a better defender.
Yeah, so that's going to give us that's going to question their their thoughts on what a good defensive player is if they already have the Anthony Melton and they didn't give him enough time. So yeah. Next award here. We kind of like shared this same choice here. Coach of the year, Willie Green. So why Willie Green, bro?
I think we'll just look at the natural progression of New Orleans Pelicans. They're a young team, super exciting. They finished 36 and 46 last season. So they've started the season really strong. They've got a few injuries at the moment, but I think that they are definitely pushing for playoff contention. I think for me, they will make the playoffs, not even the play-in, the playoffs. Um, but I think that young squad needs that guidance, and I think Willie Green will be able to do that and guide them through, almost similar to a Phoenix Suns style ascension as well from a few years back.
Yeah, and also aside from that, those are like we share the same sentiments. But aside from that, the narrative as well. I mean, a lot of players love Willie Green. He's also great in handling media session. So that definitely has some factor in terms of the voting. And then on the perspective that New Orleans is kind of like one of the black horse for me this season for the West as well. So I think I will give a lot of credit to Willie Green on how he managed this young team for the New Orleans Pelicans post Anthony Davis's era. So yeah, I think I was also thinking about Finch here, but maybe I was influenced of their slow start. Part of it, but I was really aiming for Willie Green. Just if I have a checklist on if someone not really well known coach will win this year, all of the checklist will be marked for Willie Green. So that's kind of like my thoughts. So yeah, again, we totally agree with this one. Um, since we're talking about New Orleans Pelicans, Willie Green being the coach, do you think he'll be managing Zion's case?
Will he be managing Zion?
Yeah, for load, like for example, similar how Clippers or the Bucks
Oh, yeah.
handles their
Yeah.
Giannis's or Kawhi's.
I think so. Yeah, they will need to be careful with Zion, and he's injured at the moment. He's day to day, so I think it makes sense, particularly if they are going to contend in the playoffs as well. I think they've got enough cover. They are young, but they've got enough cover, and they look really good today. I know Trey Murphy went off, my guy again. He went off today. So yes, they will load manage Zion, but it won't be anywhere near like for Kawhi and any of those other guys as well. But Zion is a sneaky pick for MVP as well, or at least the most improved. And I know we're coming to that shortly.
And the NBA loves Zion as well. Another
Absolutely.
thing here, bro, in the New Orleans Pelicans, like, we have to really give props to the New Orleans Pelicans scout. I mean, their rookies are really solid. They might not be the rookie of the year front runners, but in terms of team play and then in terms
Mm.
of heart, passion, and then being those solid role players, Alvarado, Trey Murphy, those dudes, Herb Jones, even Daniels. I like Dyson Daniels as well. Very solid. Oh, so I was checking, but I wasn't able to create the ones for the most improved player. So just let me know who's your most improved player.
Uh, Again, not going out on a limb, it's Tyrese Halliburton. He's another one of my guys. I think, yes, he showed great fantasy production and production in reality last season, but I think he's taking it up a notch this season. That's his team. He's running that team now. Um, so I really like Tyrese. There's nothing much more I can say about that. He's a front runner.
Yeah, yeah. I when you chose Tyrese, I was having a hard time to find an argument to other players that can contend with this case. But I found one just for the sake of picking a different a player. I chose Jalen Brunson because I just think that the New York Knicks, pardon me, is kind of like shitty in terms of how what they want to do for their team. And then I was thinking that maybe Jalen Bronson can kind of like not totally revamp them, but kind of like really start something maybe help out Julius Randle be more efficient, maybe help out RJ Barrett more efficient. But those are long shots, knowing how RJ Barrett and Julius Randle plays. But I was thinking maybe Jalen Bronson could actually have some noise there, especially that he plays for the New York Knicks. again, this time I'm going to kind of like do like lean on the conspiracy theories and how kind of like unfortunately poor the judges are in these awards. So I was thinking maybe Titus Halliburton isn't that guy, even though all of us knows is super good, but sometimes the judges aren't really fit to judge for some reason. So I was thinking Jalen Brunson. I mean, it's the Big Apple, so it's a big team. Lots of fans might really root for him. So I was that's kind of like
Yeah, big market team, absolutely. In New York versus Indiana, no one really cares. Maybe my fantasy bias is as well swaying me towards Tyrese Halliburton as well. But yeah, it's not a bad pick, Jalen Brunson. But yeah, Zion I think is another big contender. We mentioned him earlier, but yeah, he's a big contender for most improved.
for sure, for sure. And another player on top of my mind is one of my guys, Devin Vassell. I think is also a contender here. But then again, given that this is more of like a reality type of awardee, it's it's because I just really doubt that the judges how it's being judged is really that goes into detail as how we kind of like fantasy players sees it because we are more accustomed to the stats on a day-to-day basis. But yeah, I do understand that. Now
His
let's
teammate is
go.
another person. Keldon Johnson is another contender as well.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. At least Keldon Johnson played already in the US, so the media already knows his name.
Yeah,
So maybe MPJ if MPJ stays healthy. But that's a question mark. So let's now go with some team awards. Eastern Conference. So we thought of the teams that will win the Eastern Conference Finals, and then DMac here chose the Brooklyn Nets. Shout out to the Pat Mamba from Next Level Fantasy. I know he's a big Brooklyn Nets fan. He'll love this pick, bro. Um, is it because of Simmons?
no, it's not because of Simmons. It's because of KD. I think any team that has KD on their team is going to be up there, and I think his supporting cast is decent. Nick Claxton's looked really good. He's been the anchor at centre. He's looked really good at centre for them this season. Simmons, he keeps fouling out, but he will get his feet. He's been out of the game for such a long time. He will get his feet. He's a defensive dynamo. Um, and if they have those shooters around him, which they do, I think he won't be a liability on the offensive end either. So obviously we have Kyrie as well. He's an enigma, but he's looked really strong to start the season. It has been not a perfect start for them, a little bit slow, but I think they will ramp up and they've just got enough class and talent to get them to the playoffs. And then hopefully they have that synergy and that chemistry together that they can do some damage.
There you go. And then it's been years, what, almost 2 to 3 years that Brooklyn has always been the top pick, not only in the Eastern Conference, but for the whole league. But, the circumstances weren't in their favor for a couple of seasons. Maybe this is the year, right? So I do get that point. On my end, I'm going all in with the Milwaukee Bucks this year. I thought that the moment they lost to the Miami Heat in the bubble, I think they learned a lot from that experience, and I've seen them thrive. But similarly to the Brooklyn Nets, they had some unfortunate events. So there are several injuries that happened to them last year. I don't know. I'm just really fascinated with the work ethic of Giannis Antetokounmpo, his journey in the NBA. I think is someone that really wants to be a very very good player. Not that other players like KD doesn't want that. It just like for example, KD, he already had the chip, and then there has been several instances wherein we questioned that is there any hunger with KD still? But again, that's beyond us. I think there's still hunger for KD. But on the other hand, Giannis's case, it's pretty obvious. He wants almost how what I see in Luca. There's a certain fire in those type of players that I can't seem to see or a little bit, dimmed to other players that on top of the league right now. So yeah, I'm going all in with the Milwaukee Bucks with Chris Middleton healthy. Hopefully, I think they're going with their experience and with their lineup. I think they're very strong contenders. Western Conference. You're going with the defending champions, Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, big call by me. Very brave. Nah, can't go past the Warriors. I think they've got so much class. Their youth looks really exciting as well. Post Clay, post Steph, they're going to be good for many, many years. I know there were rumors around potentially trading a lot of those stars for KD, and I think Steph was somewhat open to that. But I think they've held strong, and they've got some high draft picks amongst the youth as well. So I think not just this year, but beyond, they're going to be strong for many, many years. Add the class of obviously Steph, hopefully Draymond. He's playing well at the moment, but hopefully their issues are behind them. They've settled their differences. Paul's got the extension that he always wanted. The pool parties happened, maybe, or maybe it's to happen, and they'll take out the championship this season.
Plus, they are very tenured, composed, and smart organization. The way they played the Boston Celtics last season, the adjustments that Steve Kerr did, really amazing for me. But on the other hand, speaking of youth, and I already mentioned that with my perspective for Giannis. I'm going with Luka Doncic here. I thought that well, first and foremost, last year's GSW versus Memphis, I thought that Memphis how had a chance to kind of like really win that series. Not that big that other people or most people think. Maybe because they hate the Golden State Warriors. But I thought they really had a chance compared to just really Golden State blowing them up. And then that goes as well with the Dallas Mavericks. It's pretty obvious that Luka needs other players to really step up. Luka can't really go against Golden State on his own. But Luka is pretty special for me. I think it's a very legit generational talent. And it's a simple move by just acquiring Christian Wood and then getting the likes of McGee, who isn't really playing well so far. I just think that the Dallas Mavericks, because there are teams that are very solid already, like for example, Golden State Warriors, Milwaukee Bucks, those are tested teams. I just think teams like Dallas Mavericks, there's somewhat an kind of like a surprise factor on those teams that people don't think they can do or they can actually win big against those type of teams. But Luka already showed that last year, despite the roster that Dallas have. So I'm expecting bigger things for Luka. But let's see if I also think that Luka can win it all. So at least for the Western Conference, I'm going against Stephen Curry here. So the lone thing, because I the second choice here is GSW. The lone thing that kind of like pulled me to the Dallas Mavericks is that the veteran factor wherein if Klay Thompson is 100%, Draymond Green being healthy, or Draymond Green the rumors might be true that he might go to Lakers or whatnot, or the implosion or whatnot. So I'm not fond of that angle, but I just thought that hey, maybe if I need to find some blemishes in the Golden State argument, maybe that's the point. So yeah. Okay, so we're up with the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference. So NBA champs, of course, you chose the Golden State Warriors. I'm going to go with the Milwaukee Bucks. So these two teams already had, in the past 5 years, they already won. Do you think who who do you think is the best team that can go against the Golden State? Maybe that's a better question.
That's a good question, Roy. I didn't mind your Dallas pick, actually. I think it sort of supports where I was going with Luka for MVP, and we know that he can put the team on his shoulders, whether that's Slovenia or Dallas. So any sort of support around him, and they'll go a long way. In the West, right? Oh, look, I like Clippers. They're deep. They're so deep, and they have the ability to rest guys like PG-13 and Kawhi and still be a really good squad. They do need to be careful with resting those guys and not getting a high seed, but I don't really think that concerns them. I think they've got the confidence in their squad that they can win from any position and any seed within the playoffs. So I think they're another contender.
And for if the Golden State Warriors wins the Western Conference in your prediction, do you think how many games will the Brooklyn win against the Golden State Warriors?
Ah, let's go 4-3. We'll go 3.
Really?
Yeah,
Well,
I
well,
want a tight
I,
one.
I,
I want a tight one this year.
I think it also follows your thoughts on the Brooklyn Nets as well. KD is going to be a difference maker as well as Kyrie in terms of playoffs. Season, yeah, I get that. There are a lot of things, especially for Kyrie. But playoffs, I think it's a different scenario. I think that it kind of like elevates what Kyrie and KD can do. But that wasn't evident last year. So it's going to be exciting to really check that one out. From my end, Milwaukee Bucks. I don't know. I'm just going all in with the Milwaukee Bucks here. Um, if ever there's a team that I think that can win over the Milwaukee Bucks, I'm thinking the Boston Celtics. Maybe the Boston Celtics. The lone thing that I'm it's hard for the Boston Celtics to really show their strength without Robert Williams, without any big man, especially with a very strong Philadelphia team right now in this season. It's going to be hard to find someone that can really defend Joel Embiid. So that's my kind of like a hole for the Boston Celtics. That's the reason why I wasn't able to choose him. Because maybe some of our followers thinking that, hey, is it like a redemption for the Boston Celtics? I just think that unfortunately, they started the season in a very bad place. Like for example, the coaching issues, the issues between Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum. Now the injuries. So I mean, um, Al Horford is already sidelined after a couple of games, and then they kind of like chose to play Noah Vonleh because Al Horford or even Grant Williams is kind of like really not playing well in defending the big. So that's going to be a problem to the Boston Celtics. On the other hand, Milwaukee Bucks, because I don't know, Brook Lopez is also a surprising factor here. Given that he's 100% healthy, who I think in the past years has been like the injury prone Tagas is injury prone back in the Brooklyn Nets, right? But now that he's healthy, he's actually playing good. I mean, having the stretch, it's a kind of like rare for a big man that is a scorer, which and efficient scorer like Brook Lopez that can defend as well, and then can also post up. So those things are the things that Brook Lopez can do, but his health is the only question there. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. Let's see if my choices or DMAX choices will will happen. So we're going to review all of these options. So
And
before
Roy,
we
I
end,
love I love your discussion around Brook Lopez, and I'm glad you brought him up. I know from a fantasy perspective, he's been amazing, what 3 blocks per game, but he's extremely important to the game style of Milwaukee, where we all know he doesn't get many rebounds, but he blocks out tremendously, and that's really important for Giannis and getting out into the open court and getting those free transition points. I think that's really important for what they're trying to achieve as well. So great call.
yeah, and last year he wasn't that 100%, right? He came back late the season. So let's see
Right.
this year. So before we end our episode, we are going to give you our guys. So DMAX guys and my guys. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to create a slide for it, but I mean we're going to take note of these names because we're going to review them mid-year and also end of the season, so we can follow the journey and the learnings that me and DMAC are going to observe the whole season, because this isn't us being that, experts or analysts. This is us just plainly trying to learn more about fantasy basketball and also trusting our own analysis. So let's start off with DMac here. Who's your who's the tep the no, tep the top 10 DMac guys this season?
Yeah, I mentioned him earlier, Tyrese Halliburton. I've got a bit of an obsession with him, and he is in my keeper league. So I do have a bit of an investment in how well he goes. But there was a lot of hype around him, and I think that's justified. Going in a lot of leagues in the first round in 12 teamers. So at least in the top 14 picks. Continuing on from his great form at the end of last season, after the trade from Sacramento, he's, like I said, he's now the number one on that Indiana Pacers side. He's got some good support. I don't think they're going into full tank mode, so people are concerned about him resting a lot of games. I don't have as much concern at this stage. They're playing quite well. The record doesn't really show it, but they're playing hard, and Tyrese is leading from the front. In nine cat, just based on basketball monster ratings, his rank is 15th in nine cat. So it's about where people were drafting him. So I'm pretty happy with where he's going and where that Pacers team is going in terms of not tanking too early. So I'm happy with Tyrese Halliburton. He's my number one guy. Roy?
Got it. And then for me, let me see here. So let me drop a couple of names. But my number one guy this year is going to be DeJounte Murray. So I think people kind of like undervalued DeJounte Murray's move to the Atlanta Hawks. Rightfully so. I mean, there will be games that Trey Young will definitely, take off, and that's his team. So I'm pretty sure there will be games that DeJounte will definitely step back. But I just think DeJounte Murray offers a lot of things over this, not just scoring. He can actually, to be honest, the Atlanta Hawks actually plays better when DeJounte Murray plays the point guard over Trey Young playing the point guard, just because of naturally Trey Young is just so small, and he isn't like the strongest of the guards. So that's the advantage of playing DeJounte Murray in point, because that, slicing the defense uh is, I mean, Trey Young does that, but because of his ability to uh create space by dribbling, compared to DeJounte, wherein he does that because of his strength, as well as his ability to really um, go strong to the basket. That's the reason also why he got several injuries back in the San Antonio Spurs. So I've been following DeJounte for quite some time now. So I'm kind of like biased in this pick. But a couple more names here to drop. I also like this year, I also like Kyrie Irving. I think some people are kind of like down with what Kyrie Irving's uh, with all of the things that Kyrie Irving did during the past 2 years. But I think you're going to win a lot of leagues. There's a big if, but I don't know. I just, my gut says is going to be a better year for Kyrie Irving. So i- he's going to give us like a top 10 value, or maybe even higher. So he's also one of my guys. Another player that I'm excited with is Desmond Bain. I think if I was available last couple of days, I would have like really shouted that, hey, if someone owned Bain, buy low, because they might have been rattled in the previous 2 games, but he actually exploded the recent game. But I kind of like Desmond Bain, not only because of what he already achieved in just 2 years. Uh, as you can see him, it's more of like his efficient, he's a scorer. But for me, there's a hidden upside for Desmond Bain. Because knock on the wood, what if Ja Morant goes down? What if Dylan Brooks or other role players doesn't really have that? Like for example, Aldama, can he actually sustain what is currently providing for the Memphis Grizzlies? So if everything falls down, I think there's an additional upside for Desmond Bain to really provide value. So that's the reason why I kind of like love picking Desmond Bain in that in his ranking. How about you? More guys from you, DMac.
Yeah, my second guy, Dame Lillard. I think he was being drafted at the end of the first round, sometimes the start of the second, and I think that's great value. At the moment, he's ranked 12th. Um, he's had a couple of monster games, but we know coming back from the abdominal injury last season, he actually played through the Olympics with that injury, and that really impacted his field goal percentage and his 3-point percentage as well, to career lows. This season, he's back on track. He looks healthy. He's firing. He's looking really good next to Anthony Simons as well. So it's a really nice backcourt duo. So he is another one of my guys. I think he was undervalued going into this season's drafts.
There you go. Another guy for me would be I'm gonna pick Cade. I mean, interesting. It's not looking good, but I'm gonna pick. I also love Cade picking Cade because I thought that he should have like have the same projection, not projection, more of like the same opportunity that Tyrese Halliburton has. Uh, the main difference there is, well, unfortunately, Jaden Ivey is is really
Yeah.
doing pretty well. He's definitely impacting what he could have or would have done by now. But let's see. Let's just give him a couple more games. It's not looking good so far, but Cade is someone that can give you a lot of stuff. That's the reason why a lot of analysts love his game because he can defend, he can give you a lot of dimes, he can score. But when I really closely watched Cade. One of the reason that kind of like gave me a question mark was his decision making. It's one of the thing that being boasted when he came to the NBA, but his decision making of taking shots, not by the playmaking, but by taking shots. There are several instances, not only by just one game, but all of the games. There are several instances wherein he is really hesitant to really shoot the ball or really go hard for some reason. So I was thinking that hopefully not, but well, this is good for Jaden Ivy owners. But Jaden Ivy is someone that doesn't shy away on, on that situation. So I'm kind of like, let's see. I had several kid, but I didn't pick him second. I usually pick him like in the third round. I didn't reach for him. It just so happened that always fall to my lap. So yeah, I'm looking forward if Cade really is the real deal for the Detroit Pistons.
And I think he'll turn it around. He's shooting 38.6%, so that's dismal for someone with his skill and shooting ability. They're still trying to find the chemistry next to Ivy, but I think they're going to be an electric backcourt duo for those guys. Ivy has looked really good. Not a great fantasy guy. He will be top 100, I think. But Cade's got the upside where he could be an easy top 20 ranked player at the end of the season. People complain about the turnovers, but a lot of people punt turnovers, so it's not an issue. And I think he's still the alpha. He's the number one on that team. That's his team. So he's still trying to find his feet and establishing himself as that alpha as well.
There you go. Um, Next couple of players, let me do it in chunk. I've already mentioned Mathurin earlier. I like Sengun as well. I already mentioned that. Um, Zion, I also like, which I kind of like already have some contention about Zion being back. So let me just my last two players that I wasn't able to really kind of like expound a little bit. Franz Wagner, I kind of like Franz Wagner. I think he's the ability to he's very good in roto, and I think in nine cuts there are several SFs there that is limited, but Franz Wagner isn't one of those because he can do a lot of things. If you kind of like missed in players that doesn't give you assist and then there's no more guards there, I think you can get a good chunk of assist in the forward position from Franz Wagner, which is kind of like good. But the thing is, I'm just really being upfront. I don't want to change my mind here, despite Banquero already playing and doing the the nightmare. I was thinking that hey, what if Banquero is going to be their point forward, which is already being done. So my Franz Van Wagner pick isn't looking good, but I think he'll bounce back. Just a couple more defensive stats or just a couple more snipes or free throws made, his value will definitely rise. And then lastly, I'm gonna go with J Will of the better J Will, the forward J Will of the OKC Thunder. Just because in the I do believe he'll win several playoffs this season. Maybe both J Wills, I guess, because I don't trust OKC anymore. I love SJ. Me and DMac had a kind of like a back and forth conversation last episode, right? On because hey, I think SJ is given the opportunity, he can be a top 10 guy. So that's so you all know I love SJ, but I don't want SJ this season. I hate OKC this season. Aside from J Will, that's the only bright light that I can see. I even mentioned Poku last time that hey, you can use this as a last pick. Now I'm staying away. I already dropped Poku. I don't care if he blows up. I'd rather have like Nick Richards or any other player. So yeah, my last player is J Will. I think, especially if you missed out on assist, he's a good playmaker. He's already playing beyond his years. Looking at it in preseason and even the start of the season, he already got a lot of stats right before he was knocked out on that game. So if you luckily for those who have IL slot, if you see any J Will in your leagues, I will definitely stash him 100%. We had a last minute roto draft, right? So I was super happy because J Will was injured because I was praying that hey J will be injured for half season because I do believe that your value is just the latter part. So I'm happy for you. Well, not happy that he's hurt, but I'm happy that he has an injured status. So yo, bro, complete your 10 guys.
Yeah, my third guy's Terry Rozier. I think we all know how good he is at fantasy. He's still underdrafted. Injured at the moment. Hopefully he comes back soon. I think he's got an ankle issue. He was in a moon boot after his last game played. I'm hoping he'll be back soon. But even just after 2 games, 26th ranked player. So you can see how much he's dominating in those 2 games without LaMelo on the court as well. Next, Jabari Smith, the aforementioned Jabari Smith, started slowly. His shot wasn't fantastic. He wasn't. His threes weren't going in, but the last couple of games he's looked fantastic. He was always getting his blocks. He was getting his rebounds, but it was just his shot. In the last couple of games, his shot has been going down. He's hitting that 3, and just that stat set will always lead to fantasy value. So currently ranked 37th. So that's tremendous value because I was able to get him around that pick 100 mark in quite a couple of 2 or 3 leagues. So really happy with that. So fantastic from Jabari Smith. Vassell, you mentioned him. I don't need to speak about him anymore. Trey Jones, doing really well. Got him around that 100, 110 mark for most people. I don't have any shares of Trey Jones. I think people caught on pretty quickly about how important he would be as a starting point guard for the Spurs. Josh Primo, I think we discussed in our last episode together, Roy. Josh Primo is his backup, but he's a bit of a combination guard. He's not taking the pure point guard role away from Trey Jones at this stage. So he's looking really strong at the moment. Kristaps Porzingis, the unicorn, I thought he would be doing better. He's had a couple of quiet games, but he's generally giving us what we expected out of him, although his free throws are a little bit lower. But small sample size, he's shooting 67% from free throw line, where we expected around the 80% mark. But again, small sample size, so a long way to go. But he has looked healthy. He did have a bit of an injury scare to start the season with his ankle, but he's been fine the last 4 games. Just very quickly, Jalen Smith, again, slow start, but he's looked fantastic in the last couple. Isaiah Hartenstein, we've spoken about him before, backing up Mitch Robinson. I think that's a great spot for him because we know that Mitch Robinson can't stay on the court for very long with either foul trouble or continuous injuries. So I think Hartenstein, a lot of people, he went undrafted in a few leagues of mine. I was able to pick him up off the waiver wire. So he's looking really solid. And finally, everyone knows my smoky pick, Grant Williams. And I was made to look like a genius after the first 3 games. He was fantastic from an efficiency point of view. He wasn't missing many shots. He wasn't getting many other statistics. He was getting some steals, but in the last game, he had an absolute stinker. He went scoreless. He was ejected in the fourth quarter. I think he had 3 rebounds and maybe a steal. But he's still ranked 73rd. So I'm really happy with that real late round pick, particularly in my deep leagues. There's my 10.
There you go. So love our picks, and then let's see. Again, this isn't just like me and Dima competing. It's more of like really us really observing, and then also learning on the changes because this isn't like set into stone. Whatever we see right now, this isn't set into stone. There's what it's just like a week or so. So there's a lot of games, and then there's going to be a trade deadline. There's going to be hopefully lesser injuries, hopefully lesser COVID cases. But yeah, it's going to be a very very exciting season. And again, we'll review our guys midway and then end of the season, and then also share our learnings, what we've learned. Next episode this coming weekend, we'll try to think of something on top of my head. I was thinking of like first few reactions on the draft that we had before after possibly after that episode we can now go deeper on a weekly basis features. So yeah, so thank you so much, DMac. Before we end our episode, again, big shout out to Secretong Parizan. We are now operating 20 hours. So this is one of the reasons I'm actually busy as well. So hope if you are available to drop by along the area, please do so because we'll definitely love our soup. Also, DMAC, promote your accounts. Have you already created your YouTube channel?
I haven't created my own content because I love being on your channel so much, Roy. So I'm going to continue here. But I have got my channel up and going. So NBA Fantasy Bible on YouTube. So look out for some content. I may even have you, Roy, on my show at some stage. Obviously on Twitter, NBA Fantasy Bible. And I do also have a Facebook page, but haven't started creating content on Facebook as such. But Twitter is where I'm most active. So give me a follow, guys. And yeah, looking great so far.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I'll be kind of like really reviewing a lot of things because I want to, give back again to our followers starting tomorrow. So I'll be checking out NBA Fantasy Bible's tweets for sure later. No, I have been actually checking out on the day-to-day basis. It just so happened that I haven't had the time to, also post mine. But yeah, me and Dimak, we're going really we'll grind it out for the whole season. So watch out for our future episodes starting next week. And something that I wasn't able to really create for you guys was the the per week schedule analysis. So Dimak will be kind enough to do it for us starting next week. So watch out for his segment next week. Okay, so before we end, again, shout out to our group NBA Fantasy League Dash page in Facebook. Of course, if you want to follow us in Facebook, Fantasy Basketball Pinas, YouTube and Spotify, Fantasy Basketball page, Twitter handle, NBA Fantasy Papi. I would personally suggest to follow NBA Fantasy Bible instead because I wasn't really, he got a lot of things going there compared to mine. So even me, I'm really like reading his stuff. And then in Kumu, check out Papi Roy. So bro, thank you so much. Let's get things started next week. Let's go strong and hard. Hopefully, the weather and everything goes well. Hopefully, I get I get to feel healthier and my family as well. So we can give our followers the content that they wanted for the whole season.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Stay safe. Stay safe, everyone. We'll see you next time.
There you go. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.